Very good. A major battle now brewing over tax cuts, and it's pitting Senate Republicans against the House GOP. And here's why. The Senate started the markup process for their tax reform bill today, and the debate will likely center on state and local deductions. The Senate revealed last week that they wanted to completely get rid of those deductions, which allow people in high-tax blue states to deduct their state income and property taxes from their federal taxes. But Kevin Brady, the lead congressman on tax reform, said the House wouldn't stand for the complete elimination of SALT deductions.
I'm convinced that this is where we're going to end up because it's important, again, as I told you, Chris, to make sure people keep more of what they earn, even in these high tax states. And so what we're working toward, what we've worked so carefully with our lawmakers from New York and California and New Jersey, is to make sure we deliver this relief, and I'm committed to it.
So are you saying then that the House will not accept a total elimination, that just won't fly even if the Senate passes it?
That's what I'm saying.
That's so weird, because before he was totally for eliminating those SALT deductions. 401k is what also takes center stage. Senator Orrin Hatch introducing an amendment that would change how older people contribute to their retirement savings, saying the GOP can come through on this long-held promise. Let me bring in my silver-tongued party panel, host of the Tom Shalhoub Show on Fox News Radio. It's Tom Shalhoub. It's a great show. Listen to it every day at 3 to 6 Eastern Time. Former New York Congresswoman and member of the Trump for President Advisory Board, Nan Hayworth, is here, along with Reason Magazine editor-at-large, fresh off the Reason Media Awards, Matt Welch. Welcome, everyone.
Hi. Yeah.
So, Matt, taxes have really become a cluster cuss. And, you know, the issue that I would like you to visit, which I've talked about for the past few weeks, is obviously the inability to cut spending. If you don't cut spending, you cannot have meaningful tax reform and tax cuts without raising the debt in order to pay for those cuts.
And they gave up that fight last month. Openly. I mean, a lot of people who've been spending the last 7 years in the Tea Party movement and elsewhere saying this is our number one issue, debt and deficits and cutting spending, said, you know what, the political will isn't there when we actually run all three branches of government now. So instead, we're just going to blow up the deficit by $1.7 trillion is the latest. But it's going to get bigger than that because each step of the...
It's going to cost a lot more to pay for that $1.7 trillion when you have to borrow that money.
And each step of the way is going to be lawyered at by people who are going to be affected by this. So this is going to be whittled down. They've already given up on cutting spending. Yeah. So it's just a matter of how big they're going to blow up the deficit right now, and it can't get smaller. It's going to get bigger from now.
Well, Nan, you've been a part of the process. I mean, and it looks like right now you've got two warring houses. How do they come together? What do you see happening?
I do trust Kevin Brady. He is an honest broker, and
but he's flipped on this issue. I mean, he was the one who was pushing getting rid of those SALT deductions, and now all of a sudden he's their savior.
I know. The hidden process challenge behind all of this is the fact that the Senate is trying to pass this bill, as it did with health care reform, through reconciliation. And that means they have a very narrow corridor in which they can actually succeed. That's why they have to discount, if you will, for those of us who believe strongly, as I do, in the dynamic effect of tax reform, because as soon as you give dollars back to the citizens, wow, they suddenly grow and proliferate. Trickle down is what the federal government does. Blossom up is what the people do. But you can't allow for those things. You can't allow for those phenomena when you're passing a bill with reconciliation. So now the Republicans in the House are constrained by what's possible for the Senate. So what the Senate's trying to do, they're coming ever closer to accommodating Democrats because they're hoping.
Well, I mean, that's what they've said. They've been pretty open about it. Is it really necessary to bring 3 Democratic senators on board, or should they just try and do this with the House blueprints?
Well, I don't think they can get it because Democrats, that's their thing, is they're going to be pretty unified in blocking anything. That's kind of their game plan. I almost don't blame them. Because we did elect a president, we kind of said, when we elected Trump, we kind of said, we're not worried about legislation. We just want this guy because we think this is kind of a cool thing to do right now.
Great experiment.
Yes, but I don't think that Republicans I don't think the people are all jazzed up about legislation. I don't understand any of this stuff. Deductions, local, whatever. It's all confusing to me. So
it is confusing, but I think that's what they're banking on.
Yeah.
I think it's like with Obamacare, that if you use a bunch of big words and make people glaze over, they'll let you pretty much do whatever you want.
And legislatively, the Senate is just going to present to the House, okay, we've done it. vote yes or no. There's going to be no reconciliation. They've already advertised it. The House, Brady's pretending like there's going to be a negotiation.
There's going to be a conference bill?
There wasn't on
They don't have time for
there
that.
wasn't on the 10-year budget window. The House said no, it's going to be deficit neutral. The Senate said no, 1.5 trillion. And the House said, okay, we like tax cuts. They did the same thing on Obamacare. They'll do the same thing here. It's the only way it's going to pass is if the House passes a bill that it pretends is going to be in play.
Yep.
The Senate passes something totally different. Tom Shalhoub and I
And are all of a sudden holding hands, and we're libertarians, so we're just fine with that. Meantime, President Trump in a war of words with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un after the communist regime called our president an old lunatic. Trump shot back on Twitter saying, quote, "Why would Kim Jong-un insult me by calling me old when I would never call him short and fat? Oh, well, I try so hard to be his friend, and maybe someday that will happen." North Korea has been insulting our leaders for decades. It's unusual for a president to do the same. But this is no ordinary president. But do the insults risk escalating our nuclear standoff, or is it right for the president to put little Kim in his place? Little rocket man. What do you think of this Twitter exchange?
Yeah, I think it's good. I mean, Kim Jong-il, he's pretty good at going, just like Trump is, going for the weak point, because inserting the word old in there, that's what really got.
And the word was dotard.
Yes, I know, but that was like, dotard was one, and then you have lunatic, which are both pretty high on the insult level. Old isn't really that bad of a thing, and he is old, but that's what got to Trump. That's what got him mad.
That's interesting.
He doesn't mind lunatic. He
No.
minds old, so he went back with short and fat.
And of course, for men, short is potentially a problem, especially for Kim Jong-un, although now under Kim Jong-un.
I mean, that BMI
North
number of his,
Korea,
that has to be in the
right?
40s. Am I right?
But, in his North Korea, short and fat is the way to be.
Yeah.
But I think really what Kim Jong-un, I mean, the president has his own distinctive style, which is very different from any antecedent. We know that. But what Kim Jong-un is actually paying attention to, no doubt, is the fact that President Trump is actually turning the screws up in terms of sanctions, in terms of military.
Yeah, we focus on the
might.
digital rhetoric, but the
Right.
president actually said the weapons you are acquiring are not making you safer. They are putting your regime in grave danger. Every step you take down this dark path increases the peril you face.
remember that when the president of China was visiting Trump in Florida, Trump was like, "Oh, hold on one second. I got
gotta
something
go
going
bomb
on."
Syria.
Oh yeah, go
Sorry,
ahead.
man.
Bomb whatever you want. Right? He plays the lunatic Twitter crazy person on purpose.
Yeah.
This North Korea is the focus of his foreign policy in many respects right now in the world. This is what he's trying to do. He's trying to act strategically crazy so that China and Japan and South Korea are freaked out enough that they actually do something for once.
It's like Martin Riggs from Lethal Weapon if he were in A Clockwork Orange. That
Thank you.
is this president. You are welcome, and they are welcome back here because the party panel is returning a little bit later in the show. First up, however, the president says he believes Vladimir Putin is sincere in denying the Russians meddled in our 2016 election.